sunny, the water's low and clear. We can see almost every scale on the fish. It means it's challenging fishing. It means it's interesting. We're pitching nymphs into little spots. The fish haven't been rising, so that's why we've chosen nymphs. Pitching nymphs into little spots, hoping that perhaps a grayling or even a trout might have a look. But it's not been the case so far. We've not been fishing very long, and we're trying to figure out what the fish actually want right now. And part of you thinks, the weather's warm and bright, and wonder if the fish are feeding well overnight. And they don't seem to be paying the attention that you'd always, as an angler, when you first get to the river, hope that they would. And grayling are doing that sort of thing, that they sort of look at it and then just gently idle away to the side, let the nymph go by, and then go back into position again, and the dance starts once again. I'm fishing today with Adrian Grose-Hodge, who many of you will know from Fly Culture. He interviews people for the articles and does a wonderful job around the fishing world. And yesterday was a sad day. We said goodbye to our friend Kris Kent, amongst many fly anglers, and he was loved by many, and I'm sure many of you listening will know him as well, and you were impacted by him. And we just felt it was right to try and catch a fish in his honour today. I think he'd approve. We're using tackle I'm sure he'd like and approve of as well. So we thought it would be nice to do that. While I'm sitting talking to you, I'm seeing a few small olives starting to hatch now as well, which is encouraging. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to talk to Adrian a little bit. I stayed overnight in Hampshire, so you know that we're on a chalk stream at the moment. We stayed overnight and we had dinner together, and we've had breakfast together, a proper sportsman's again this morning, and have talked nothing but fishing. And it's been wonderful to actually do so and cover so many interesting topics. And somebody who has such a deep love, understanding and passion for fly fishing, it's wonderful to talk to him. And his book collection as well. He's an avid collector of fly fishing books, and we were chatting about favourite authors and searching out books and enjoying that as well. But we're on the river at the moment. It's the first time I've known Adrian a long time, but it's the first time we've actually got around to fishing together. Life has got in the way of many things for us, but we're getting the chance to fish together, and we're doing that sort of initially feels a little uncomfortable. Well, how do you like to fish? Well, how do you like to? And we're just taking it in turns, fishing up the river, changing flies, having a chance. Right, the fish hasn't eaten my fly. Why don't you have a go? And that's part of the fun of it. We're trying to figure out, right, what do the fish want? What do we have to give them to make them pay interest? And we're already trying to figure out why they're not as interested. But as I said, it's bright, it's sunny, it's warm. That may be a little part of it as well, but it's not going to stop us trying. And for me, days like today are the really interesting ones, where the fishing looks as though it's going to be a little challenging. We've seen the odd fish rise and quickly snipped on some dries just to see, but they weren't consistently feeding. So we're trying to figure that out, and every now and again we'll change flies again, make that change and see if we can make something happen. But as I said, we're only a few moments into the fishing, and it's early at the moment, but it's enjoyable. And yeah, I'm waiting for that special moment where I can lift my cap to Kris and say, yep, this one's for you, bud. But we'll see how we get on. We got lots to talk about as well, and I'm sure we will. And lovely to have you along for a day's fishing today. I hope you enjoy this episode too. My name's Pete Tigers, and this is the Fly Culture Podcast. That one's for you, Kris. I changed flies up a little bit. I sound like a fanboy, but I probably sound like one because I am one. And it was a fly Peter Hayes and Don Stasica gave me. It's a nymph with black body, long tail on it. Thought, I'm sure the guys probably would have fished that pattern on water like this, if not on this water. And a small brown trout came out and ate it straight away. So I'm really thrilled. I've caught a fish for Kris. Perhaps there may be some more further down the line. The wonderful thing about this, though, is that you think you're onto the pattern, you think you're onto how to present the fly, and then of course it doesn't work again for a bit. And that's what I love about days like today, is the challenge of it and trying to figure out what the fish are doing, how they're behaving. Like I say, it doesn't feel as though they're hard on the feed at all at the moment, and grayling are just being grayling at the moment. But I was thrilled to have a trout come and have a look. Adrian had a fish come up and look at him as well, so that's encouraging. Had it on very, very briefly. So we're sort of making small steps in the right direction and continuing. I think my tippet's going to go down very quickly, because it is one of those days where we continually, as we walk up the pools, change our technique, change how we're approaching the river and the flies that we're using. So I think I'm probably going to have to do that before too long and change that, but found some shaded area at the moment. And again, I thought that might be a slightly better chance to perhaps find a fish that felt out of the sun a little bit more comfortable, but no joys there. I'm looking across the river, and the river here, there's a deep scoured out pot in front of me, yet I can see right across to the other side, and I've just seen a small grayling move across and eat something very, very briefly and go from there. It's a smallish fish, so I'm going to just leave him alone, but thoroughly enjoying this challenge right now. It's been a story of, as I'd said previously, changing flies, consistently making little changes, and we were in a deeper pool, and I put one of Warren's patterns on. It's sort of a caddis. I think if I was thinking old school, it'd be catgut, but it's a modern version of it with a bead and probably about 3.5mm bead, and then a CDC collar on it and hackle. And caught a couple of fish in there, moved upstream. Adrian was sitting on a nice pod of grayling that was sort of sitting there, and he'd not had any joys with his first pattern, so we tried that one and didn't work at all. And the fascinating thing about this is that it's skinnier water, so it's not as deep, so that bigger pattern, I think the fish possibly feel a little bit more secure in that deeper water, and so size of fly perhaps doesn't matter to the same degree. It's only my thoughts on it. Of course, that means nothing comparable to the fish. And then we've made goodness knows how many fly changes, tried all sorts of things, small, slightly bigger, brighter, darker, and then Adrian pulled out a black-coloured gold-ribbed hare's ear and just had a really nice grayling. That was fun, wasn't it, pal?
It was. It took time, but yeah, at the moment, typical August, mid-August fish, hugging the bottom, not moving too much. Probably a bit early in the day, to be honest. But yeah, it was nice to get that fish, and as we were saying before, cheers to Kris.
And we've got there's a break here in this pool. It's probably knee deep or so. It's always hard in crystal clear water to figure it out, but I think it's probably that sort of depth. And so we can see the fish. So we are fishing, and again, on previous podcasts, I've talked about this a little bit, about just spotting the fish, spotting the fish's reaction. That's exactly what Adrian did. We saw that the fish sort of turn on it, follow it as grayling do, and then the white of the mouth and the set. And that was wonderful to see. There's a few more of them, and it's almost like they're lazily basking in the sun. And we were almost at the stage of saying, well, perhaps we'll leave them and come back a little bit later. The sun's behind them. And so I think that's why they probably don't mind it so much. And that's a dream for us, because we can see everything that the fish are doing and every little movement. I've just seen a fish rise up in the water column, take a nymph, a smaller one. There's probably one, just seen one almost rise there. It might be that there's something starting to happen a little bit. Last couple of fish, the bigger guys are sort of sitting there pretty hard on the bottom at the moment, but the pleasing thing, like I say, is the ability to see them. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 at least that I can see. What do you reckon the size of that fish you had? £1.25, a bit more?
Yeah, it's just a pound, maybe a bit bigger. It's right here and right in front of us. In fact, that's slowly getting back to its place. And this is basically like one of those fake suntan lotion centres, where on the shallows all the fish are there but not doing too much. But we're just waiting for some sort of action. And as he said, 1 or 2 fish have started to move. I can see a couple at the top that we might have to target in a minute, I think.
There's two trout just moved down by us as well, and I've not even got my Polaroids on. I can see clearly that they're brown trout. I can see the spots on their sides, and yeah, just a slight shift in position from them. Don't know if that means that something more has happened. Not 100% sure. There's a tiny bit more wind. With wind, terrestrials are something we're thinking about. One of the trout has just moved upstream just in front of us. The grayling Adrian caught has moved off. No, it's just in front of us now. So, and still see that. He's sort of 3-4 feet away at the moment. He's just sort of having a relax. And yeah, we wait and see. I did see the sort of dandelion feathers as they were coming down the river, and I've seen a couple of fish try and eat those as well. I've just seen a brown trout rise right in front of us. And that's caused another brown trout's come up and say, well, what's all that commotion about? Am I missing out? So it's taken in that spot a slightly more dominant position ahead of the smaller one that has just risen. So it's kind of interesting just seeing the movement of these fish, and the behaviour of these fish is wonderful just to watch and witness. So I don't know if it's the breeze that's woken things up a little bit, and I've just had a grayling from that same spot, and Adrian's just casting upstream now and has had another one come and have a look. And I don't know if it is the breeze throwing some stuff onto the water or it's just freshened things. I couldn't tell you what it is. That's the only thing that I can see that's a little bit different, that seems to make them, we were drifting the fly down the edge of the fish, and they weren't responding in the slightest yet. There we go, and then all of a sudden things wake up just a tiny bit. We're sitting on the tailgate of my car. I've got a bit of coffee and walnut cake, some water. Adrian's got a cinnamon roll and a cup of tea that he'd made earlier this morning in a thermos, and just talking about, I said about, if you're a regular listener of the podcast, I talked about Stefano, my friend in Italy, fishing guide, who just goes across rivers with no fear. And I was just talking with Adrian about that and how I could used to be able to do that, and how it makes me a little sadder that I can't do it, yet it's someone else's turn now. And we were talking about the times when we'd sea trout fish overnight and then drive home a long way and not be bothered by it, and sleeping in cars and those things. And it is one of those things, I said, I don't think I can do it any longer now. And I don't mind that. I'm starting to get that crazy idea in my head of a car and doing a trip with the dog and the two of us sleeping in the back of it. I don't know who would put each other off the most with the snoring. I'd probably win that competition. But how things change for you, and where we're fishing today, I used to fish a fair bit a number of years ago, and where we're sitting now, I'd probably wade on through, carry on and just fish and worry about eating a little bit later. But it doesn't matter now. We're sitting down having a nice chat, and like I said, we chatted last night, we chatted in the car this morning, we chatted at breakfast this morning, and we're still talking about things. But it's funny, isn't it, Adrian, how as we get a little bit older, how you look at your, not ability, but your approach to fishing, it changes a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, we're the eternal optimists, and we always think that we're young, but the truth is our body doesn't quite keep up with our thoughts. So I was just saying that when I was younger, I used to more or less skip across rivers. But nowadays, I'm there in a line holding hands with everybody else trying to get across. It's the same. I used to abseil down into gorges just to go and fish certain places. I just don't do that anymore these days. And yes, having little breaks, having a chat, having something to eat. That's just part of the fishing. As you get older, you just enjoy those aspects more.
Yeah, it's those different things that you view it through a slightly different lens, probably a slightly stronger lens, so that you can see a bit more clearly. And where we've been fishing in the shade, I've noticed little things like, I needed to put on glasses to change the fly because there was no light to do it, and silly little things like that. And they could get to you, but you've just got to embrace it, I think. And you've just got to say, well, that's how it is now. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean I've not enjoyed the day, and we've caught some fish this morning, and as we said that we wanted to do Kris the honour, and I think we've done that this morning, haven't we?
Yeah, I think so. Going back to what we were just talking about as well, I mean, when you're young, you're always trying to find those fish, thinking there's more fish to catch. But as you get older, you just realize they're there anyway. They're not moving. So, there's no need to rush things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was at a situation where Adrian had moved upstream just a little bit, and I thought, I'll wait these fish out a little bit, but they didn't come back. And I may go and have a wander back down there again and see if there's signs of them at some stage. Perhaps I won't. We've got more water to fish as well, and it's always nice to fish new water, and we've got some of those pods of fish marked as well, so we know where to go find them a little bit later, and that's the nice part of it. The sun's out, there's not that many clouds in the sky at the moment, but we caught some fish, and that's been nice. And as you'll know with this podcast, it's not about catching the fish, but today we wanted to do it for our friend. And he was a big fan, as Adrian's saying, of grayling as well, so it's kind of nice that we've been able to do that as well. So that's part of it. And I suppose given the day that we've had, we're talking about being a little bit older, and the day yesterday, you think about mortality a bit more. And I'm certainly not a spring chicken, but there's plenty of life left in this old dog yet to run across rivers as best as I can. I do it a little bit more slowly now, but look at it in a slightly different way. And it was nice chatting with so many people yesterday about fishing and what it meant to people, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it as well. So yeah, that was all the sweeter for it. We split up for a bit just to take a bit of time to think and to reflect. Said yesterday was a difficult day for many, many people, and just getting a chance to gather yourself on the river. I've gone down to where we started the day and just quickly work through some water. A couple of things I've noticed. Not changed my fly. I've had a couple of grayling quite quickly from spots that, I guess because we'd seen fish there earlier, it was easier for me to figure out and quickly flip a nymph in, see how I got on, and went from there. And then had, a couple of fish, and then got onto a flatter pool, and I could see a trout. It was a nice trout, 14 inches, something like that, sitting there. Looked pretty doggo, covered him 2 or 3 times, not a flicker. Third time, it must have been right in front of him because there wasn't a flicker again from the fish. And so I slowly lifted up the rod thinking it was stuck on the bottom, and then the fish obviously attached to that moved upstream, spat it out, and off he went basically. And I'm sure there's something I can take from that. I haven't figured out what it was because this fishing's very, very visual, and I didn't even see it move a fin. So all I can guess is that the fly just went straight in front of its mouth and it couldn't resist it. But that was quite amusing to see, and just slowly working my way upstream, see if I can find a few fish to have a fly at. And as I often say with chalk stream fishing, but the visual aspect of it, and particularly with this bright light, makes it a joy to be able to see these fish as well. There's not many rising. I've seen one go this afternoon and sort of had a flicker of thought of putting on a dry fly, but being able to see this reaction from the fish to the nymph has been really, really exciting, and I've really enjoyed it. Like I say, I haven't changed things. I haven't got the black gold rib hare's ear that Adrian had, but I've got a black nymph with a silver bead, silver threading, and just a wisp of CDC on it. Seems to work okay. I'm working up to the deeper pool that we talked about earlier, just to see if I can see anyone at the back and if I can get a shot at fish. So that's the plan at the moment. And let's see if anyone's home. I'm walking into the tail of it, and there were fish at the tail last time, but I don't see them now. It's a little harder. There's trees both sides. The fishery here has been managed in favour of the fish, and so I really, really like that as well. But I can't see anyone at the back this time. The sun's obviously moved around a tiny bit, but I don't see anyone there. It may be that they moved a bit further up out of that more lit water, but no, I don't see anyone at the moment. I see a small one actually down there, but again, I'm going to leave that alone. No, it's by small I mean 3-4 inches, something like that. So I don't want to go after those fish. I'm going to leave those alone. But if I see anyone else And for me, I often say the chance to catch some grayling, and they're just an awesome fish. They really are. And today they feel a little bit more special as well. And we're dedicating each one to Kris when we get lucky enough to catch one, which is kind of nice as well. But yeah, I'm not seeing them at the back here. There was 2 nice fish earlier. I caught 2 fish out of this pool earlier as well, and a trout at the head of it, but I'm not seeing them in quite the same way. The head of it here is really sheltered, so I can't see into the very deepest bit. I'm tempted to speculate in there, but I think I'm going to leave it and walk upstream. As I said, I'm really enjoying the visual aspect of this fishing, see what I can find a bit further up. And those pools where Adrian had that really nice grayling, and I had one as well, I might have a look up there. I can see the bottom near to me off of the seam, and I don't see anyone down there. I'm absolutely convinced there is, so there's little doubt about that, but don't see anyone there. And like I say, I'm going to go with the visual aspect and see if I can stalk these fish and catch them. I had a quick whiz through, caught up with Adrian. It's lovely when you see your buddy sitting there on some fish, cursing every now and again when one comes and has a look and then doesn't bite. And I just walked, he said, go upstream a little bit, while he sat on them for a bit to try and figure them out. And there's a slight corner in the river, and my idea would have been probably to throw into the deeper water on the far side, on my side. As you look upstream, it bends to my left, and there's a deeper section in the middle and then shallows on the far side, but there's a sandy, shallower bit, not very deep, and I saw a nice grayling sitting on there and gave him a bunch of nymphs and played things around a little bit, tried to manipulate him. We talk about, and I'm probably going to ask Adrian about a few of these things shortly, but jigging the fly a little bit, imparting movement, inducing it, whatever you want to call it, isn't working today for whatever reason that is. It seems as though the fish just don't really want to use or expend too much energy. But what I tried to do was get my nymph a little bit deeper and held my rod a little bit lower, and it got down, and then saw the fish move a little bit, set, and he was on, and a pretty nice fish that I'm really, really pleased with. But again, these things you just sort of can walk into a spot and think, well, that's where the fish are going to be. But I sat and watched for a little bit and saw this guy there. Fortunately, there's some swans upstream stirring up the bottom a little bit, and I thought, well, perhaps there might be somebody, they might be stirring up some nymphs and things, and the fish might just be hanging back there, but I can't see any signs of them. This guy was right out of that flow and sitting on as I said, on the sand there, so it was nice and easy to spot. I caught up with Adrian and was just saying that I recorded a section about hearing him cursing with glee. I think is probably the best thing about these fish and how much fun they were. But it looks like you're having some fun there.
Yeah, no, I've been sat on a pod for the last half an hour or so. Caught the 2 tiddlers out of the pool very quickly. And then, the rest were playing with me. So they were swimming around my nymph. They were inspecting it and nudging it. Everything apart from taking it. Just wonderful. Yeah.
Like we said, I've been saying a lot about here on the visual aspect of it, and being able to see every little nuance of that drift, every little movement of that fish, every little rejection of that fish is kind of fun. And I was on the segment I've just recorded before we caught up, that I was watching you sort of jigging your nymph up and down, but it's felt to me today, although it's a really great something to have in your armoury, that it's felt today it's not really been the thing that's paid any real proper dividends.
No, I mean, like any of these things, you go longer with your leaders, you go down, from 4 to 3 to 2.5 pound. You try, 10, 12 different nymphs. It's normally in the end it's your usual nymph that catches them. But so today it's just been a bit of experimenting, which is just fun, really.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because the fish haven't given themselves up that easily. And, we detected when we'd had a couple of fish out of the pool, I had the smaller one, and then you had that really nice one out of there, that it felt as though things had changed just very, very briefly. And it's almost like there's moments, pulses, whatever it may be, that the fish suddenly become interested, then they switch off again. Have you found the same?
Yeah. Every hour or so, suddenly the fish become a bit more active. You see them feeding again, or rooting in the ground, or coming up close to the surface. But it's the in-between parts where you're sat on those pools, of course.
Yeah, we'll have a wander. As I said, there's the swans working just upstream of us. We might walk past them, give them a bit of space, and there's a nice corner pool I'd love to show you.
Oh, I'm interested. Let's go.
Just have one of those sessions that Adrian described, where there's a pod of fish, some nice fish, but just not interested. And I was changing drifts, changing flies, changing depth. I thought I got some interest where I let the fly go almost level with the fish, and then sort of took my rod upstream of me and just sort of tweaked it across them, and somebody gave it the time of day, but that was as close as I get. But yeah, I think you just see these fish and they keep you keen, keep you honest, keep you thinking, and yeah, that's fun. I stood on a bridge watching Adrian cast perfectly at some sizable grayling, who I think probably knew the drill. Bridge pools are always, I guess, popular with anglers. He did everything absolutely right. I was quietly cheering on, and then cheering probably a bit too loudly when you think a fish is getting close and you get excited for your buddy, that you think, oh, he's going to eat it, and then of course he doesn't eat it. But we're having a walk back now, and we might go and try and catch up with somebody and perhaps even fish somewhere else. But that's been fun though, hasn't it?
It's been excellent. If it's not educational, you're not doing much when you're out fishing. So on these days, when things are hard, it's just such a joy just to see the fish. The river's looking, beautiful. You have all kinds of different plants coming out, and just seeing what the fish are up to. We've caught, half a dozen fish, and seen a lot more bigger fish as well. Actually a beautiful stretch. Thank you very much.
And as a chalk stream aficionado, is it a form of fishing that you can always find something new to explore, excite, and interest?
I think for all fishermen, what you need is variety in the end. So even if you fish the chalk a lot, within the chalk there are different sections, different rivers, different types of water that you can fish. But of course that's not going to help you gain all the different methods and other things that you need to try out, and techniques that you'll get from doing mountain rivers or large rivers or whatever it is. So mix it up is what I say. But when it comes to the chalk, you're not going to get much better than a day like today. So, lovely day.
Absolutely. And as I said, apologies if it is a little maudlin. It is, like I said at the very beginning, it was a sad day yesterday, but I think we've done Kris some justice, and that's been fun from that point of view. And I think it's important. Our community is a really small one and closely knit. Even globally, it's that way as well. And when we lose a comrade, it makes us a little bit sad, and we're a little bit of a poorer place as a result of that. So I think we did him proud. I'm pleased about that. I'm going to miss him. I'm sure many of you are going to miss him as well. But it felt right to do what we did today, and I've really enjoyed it. So this podcast is dedicated to Kris Kent, our friend, and I'd just like to thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed coming along fishing again. I think it's nice. I get a lot of people say how much they enjoy this, and these are just ramblings that happen as we're on the river. There's no script. It's just as we feel it. It's a stream of consciousness as we feel it on the river, and I hope that's come across. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and thank you so much for listening to the Fly Culture Podcast.
The Fly Culture Podcast is brought to you in association with Fly Culture, a quarterly published magazine owned and run by fly anglers. When it comes to fly fishing, we've got you covered.